back to Adventures in Aviators. It's part 6 of our trip through Vietnam. This is our last portion. In part 1, we talked about our time in Hanoi. In part 2, we talked about Ha Long Bay and our 3-day, 2-night tour there.
From there, we took a night train, and then we ended up in Hue, and then we took a private drive down to Hoi An. And then from there, we flew to Ho Chi Minh. So we're going to talk about Ho Chi Minh City.
So Ho Chi Minh City is definitely the big city of the South. Unlike Hanoi, we thought that the traffic was much more reasonable there. We feared for our life crossing the street in Hanoi. Much more rules and control and vehicles, fewer scooters in Ho Chi Minh City. So right off the bat, we appreciated that quite a bit. We stayed in District 4, very near District 1. And District 1 is really where the hub of entertainment and tourism is, but we found a really great Airbnb in a huge high-rise, very walkable to a lot of the main sites. And you will experience this a lot in Vietnam. There's not nearly the restrictions on a lot of the Airbnb properties there, so you can find a variety of options there. And so we really appreciated the views from our hotel. So we encourage you to really find a good, cheap place in Ho Chi Minh City through Airbnb.
So District 4 is really known for its seafood. They have a whole street that's devoted to seafood, and almost every restaurant there has seafood. It's unbelievable. Now, we looked into trying to do a food tour, and usually in most places that are like European prices, I would expect a food tour to run about $40 to $50. But in a place like Thailand and Vietnam and some of those places, I would expect food tours to be a lot cheaper, but they were still like $50. And so I didn't care for that. So we did not do a food tour here. But the reason why we figured this out later is you will have one person on a moped taking you everywhere. So when you are in a group of 10, there are 10 mopeds taking 10 tourists around to these different places. So that's a cool experience. If you want to risk your life on a moped, cool, that's awesome. I was freaking out, so I did not do that. But you can still have the same kind of a food tour experience just by Google searching a few of the favorite things in Vietnam and your different cities and going and trying them yourself. It was awesome, and we picked out a few things we wanted, and then we asked for a few suggestions. Mind-blowing and super cheap. So strongly recommend visiting Seafood Street no matter where you're staying. It is definitely an experience worth having.
So many of the other places that we visited had to do with the Vietnam-American War, known as the American War in Vietnam, not shockingly. But there are a number of places that you can go to experience and learn about the history of this war. In District 1, you can go to the War Remnants Museum. You can see tons of these remnants from the war. You've got planes, you've got tanks, you've got weapons, all of these different things. It also gives just an in-depth look at the conflict in the museum itself. Also talks about the long-term effects of the war. I will just say that this was representative of the Vietnamese side of the conflict, and so as an American you might disagree with some of the things you're reading, but it is good to have a full perspective and range of understanding on these matters. Another place to learn about Vietnamese history is the Imperial Palace. This is actually formerly the U.S. Embassy there, and so you can take a tour of that place as well. We took a tour to the Chu Chi Tunnels, and this is the extensive underground network of tunnels that the Viet Cong had just north of Ho Chi Minh City during the battle. And if you know anything about the Vietnam War, you know that this is an integral part of that conflict. As interesting as these tunnels were, and I loved learning about this place, I wish that it was held in more reverence. Because it's important to remember that people died here. This was treated a little bit more like a tourist attraction, and people were taking pictures on these tanks that have been left there from the war. and you're learning about the ways that they booby traps and how they maimed different troops and stuff like that. It just didn't feel like a place where it was the reverence of those the fallen remained. And so we have mixed feelings about this place. It's definitely worth seeing and understanding how these people lived for years during this conflict. So I do encourage you to go and let's do it and understand more about it, but just understand that you're not going to feel the sense of respect maybe that is deserved in a place like that. In case you're nervous about being an American in Vietnam, please know that we did not experience any kind of ill will in any way, shape, or form. In fact, the Vietnamese were overly hospitable and nice and courteous to us. It is clearly a part of their past, and they see that as a part of their past, and they don't hold that against Americans in any way. At least we did not experience anything like that. So don't let that keep you from visiting this awesome country or these amazing sites that are impactful and important to visit.
So that pretty much concludes our time in Vietnam. We were in Vietnam for about 3 weeks. We could have been there so much longer. There's so many more places that you could go visit and things to learn about. But again, this was on our list of things to do, so we knocked off all of the places that were on the top of our list. If you have other suggestions, please put them in the comments of places to go see. There's so many more. Now, keep in mind, this was also in the midst of us doing a whole Southeast Asia tour, so keep your eyes open for the rest of our trip, and we'll take you through the whole loop of Southeast Asia. We'll see you next time!
And came there for 3 nights, 2 nights, and 3 days. Balls! Hoi An. Come on, let's get to. That's why it just stopped at 5.
Do you want me to recap it?
Sure.
So in part 6, we're going to... no.